All right, the time is 23 minutes before 9. Parts of southern Africa have been hit hard by flooding from Cyclone Idai. At the last count, 417 people have been known to have died in Mozambique, and the death toll in Zimbabwe stands at about 142. In Malawi, 56 people have lost their lives. Experts suggest that the devastation from floods in southern Africa can be lessened if surface water and groundwater are managed better. This as mop-up operations continue and aid is supplied to those affected by Cyclone Idai. James Sauramba, the Executive Director of the Southern African Development Community-Groundwater Management Institute, is joining us via Skype. He's based in Bloemfontein. Thank you very, very much for joining us and welcome to the program, James.
You're most welcome.
James, let's start by explaining, I suppose a lot of people wondering, groundwater. How do you define groundwater?
Groundwater is the subsurface resource. It exists underground in what we call aquifers, or underground reservoirs that keep the water.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of the management of groundwater, how do you believe that it could be better managed during the Cyclone Idai?
Groundwater is a very sensitive resource in the sense that it is susceptible to pollution, and once it's polluted, it is extremely difficult to remove the pollutants. So under the current circumstances where there is flooding, there's also a potential that contaminants can enter the aquifer and make it difficult to clean it for consumption by the people. So under the current circumstances, there are areas where it has been polluted by chemicals, by different other pollutants that go into it. So better managing it is, under flood conditions might be difficult, all right? But during the normal circumstances, we have measures that we have to use to protect groundwater.
In the countries that have been affected by Idai, what is the state of their groundwater infrastructure?
As of now, it is obviously unknown because most of the ground is flooded. And for human consumption, like the people that are sitting in areas where surface water is now mostly polluted, you know what happened. People died, some chemicals also entered into the surface water and so forth. The easier way of having to access water for human consumption would be to access deep aquifers that are not easily polluted by surface water the moment there's flooding.
Yeah, I mean, when we sort of look at what the work that you do, the SADC GMI, how do you help countries in actually securing and better managing their groundwater?
We have a multi-pronged approach to assisting our member states to better manage groundwater. Some of these initiatives are about considering the conjunctive utilization of water resources. By this we mean we don't have to think about surface water alone. We also have to think about groundwater because they exist jointly. It's not like wherever you have a river, there's also groundwater underground.
Yeah.
And if you look mostly in rural areas, you will observe that even though there are rivers, we mostly get water from wells around the river. So groundwater and surface water are inseparable.
Yeah.
In large measure. So we actually work with our member states to build the capacity of the government institutions to better manage groundwater, and we are also working with river basin organizations to integrate groundwater into the surface water management.
One of the big things as well coming out of this, and this is always a repercussion when you see devastating events such as what's happened in Mozambique and some of the surrounding countries, the neighboring countries, you now start seeing reports of a cholera outbreak. And that is where, things start getting worse. How I suppose the question is, how can this be managed so that it doesn't spread, it doesn't become more of a human travesty than we're already seeing right now?
Yeah, cholera is actually a serious risk in scenarios where you have flooding, because it means waterborne diseases are also easier spread. So one of the most critical means of spreading or preventing the spread of cholera is to ensure that the communities get potable water. So this is a combination of both groundwater and surface water. It means people should have purification plants, on-site purification plants. We have got measures that we are also implementing as pilots in some of the countries, like in Malawi, where a community type of water treatment plant is put in place to further purify groundwater for human consumption in emergency scenarios. So these are pilots we are running, and we are also capacitating the SADC member states to be able to run such programs in emergency situations.
You know, James, we've seen the photographs of the devastation that Idai has left behind for Mozambique, but obviously it'll take a while to rebuild and to try and get people back to normality. I mean, that's a very long time away. But in terms of water consumption, being able to drink the water once again and try and bring a little bit of life back to the area, how long does something like this take?
I missed your point there.
Just
Can you kindly repeat?
In terms of how long it'll take for Mozambique to get back to a situation where they're able to drink the water and things can actually dry up. I mean, it still looks like they're very far off, but from your experience, how long does this take?
Oh, I am not too sure, but obviously it takes a lot of effort and time. I'm aware that across the region, a lot of SADC member states are collaborating in order to assist these communities to get back to normal. I know there are structures from the SADC level where they have disaster risk management and civil protection initiatives that try to get people back to normal life as early as possible. That is part of the regional integration that has been promoted across the region.
Yeah.
So that member states help each other to get back to their feet when they are confronted with such scenarios.
Certainly. Just finally, we obviously need to be concerned about this ourselves as South Africa, as much as we're talking about Mozambique and our other neighboring countries from Malawi, Zimbabwe. What does our groundwater supply look like here in South Africa? If we are faced with a devastating event such as what we saw happening in Mozambique, how can we fare? Such an important question.
When we look at events...
James, we've got you back. We lost you for a while. I'm not sure if you heard my question. If you can, very quickly.
Did.
You heard about South Africa. How can we manage that?
Yeah, I wanted to say that we have to look at different scenarios here. When you look at a cyclone, it is something that is even very difficult to plan for, because it comes with consequences that are beyond normal measure. So they then become risks, and things that have to be managed at an emergency level. But under normal circumstances, we have got climate change that is hitting across the region, including South Africa, including the Cape Town scenario that we all know, where the rainfall patterns are becoming more erratic, and we have extreme droughts as well as extreme flooding scenarios. So our options are about being able to store groundwater during scenarios of higher rainfall, and utilizing the same groundwater that we store underground during scenarios of drought. So groundwater should be an option, not an option, but one of the critical components of managing the current climate change scenarios that we're experiencing. For instance, groundwater is more resilient to the impacts of climate change in comparison to surface water. I think you'll see how many rivers have dried up. Dams are full of sand now. but it doesn't mean that there's no water in that catchment. We have got what we call transboundary aquifers that cut across different nationalities. The management of these have got similar challenges from a governance and from a scientific perspective as the rivers that we see flowing. Okay. So in order to cope with these impacts of climate change, we have to enhance the integration of the management of transboundary aquifers and the management of aquifers within the country during the different seasons of the year that we experience.
James, we need to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. James Sauramba is from the Southern African Development Community Groundwater Management Institute, talking to us about groundwater supply following the devastation of Cyclone Idai. Let's take a break. See you after this.